Things just keep getting worse for the Atlanta Braves in 2025 as they drop their fifth straight game to begin the season with a 6-1 loss on Monday night against the Dodgers. We'll break all that down on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at shorts.ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves and on Instagram at Locked On Braves. If you're new and watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor, real quick. Stop what you're doing, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Thanks to all my everydayers out there and everybody that's been killing it on the views lately, despite the bad start to the season. We've had over 7,000 views on each of the last YouTube videos, over 10,000 listens. So thank you so much for all the support that you give me there. On today's episode, it's unfortunately more bad news as the Braves dropped to 0-5 on the season, a 6-1 loss to the Dodgers. We'll talk about that. Also get into some updates on Spencer Strider, Ronald Acuña Jr., and some of the other news that we weren't able to get to yesterday just because of all the news that come out with Profar and Ronaldo Lopez, but a lot to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Braves. But unfortunately, we have to start with another loss. The Braves, like I said, dropped to 0-5 on the year, a 6-1 loss to the Dodgers on Monday night. They did score a run. They end their scoreless streak, but it comes in another loss. And this from Justin Toscana on X, who said the 0-5 start is their fifth time starting 0-5 or worse, and none of those teams made the postseason. This wasn't part of the post from Justin, but I would guess that maybe not a lot, but several of those teams came before the expanded postseason era. I think now it's more likely that you could start 0-5, 0-7, 0-10 even, and you could still get to the postseason where in some years you might only need 85, 86 wins like we saw with the Diamondbacks a couple of years ago. So it's more likely now that you can have a start like this and still get to the postseason. And baseball's a long season. You know that you can overcome this. The Braves are more than capable of going on a 5-6 game winning streak to kind of even things out. But certainly you don't want this going on too much longer. The longest season opening losing streak can still make the postseason for the Braves is 0-4, which they've done twice, including in 2021. That was kind of the saving grace that we had after the getting swept by the Padres, is that the Braves also started 0-4 in 2021. Well, now they've started 0-5, and they've never had a team start 0-5 or worse and make the postseason. So they'll be trying to break that this year. On the mound for the Atlanta Braves Monday night was Grant Holmes, a pitcher that I think a lot of us were rightfully excited about coming into the year. The Braves put a lot of stock in him. It's one of the reasons they didn't go out and get another start of this offseason is because Alex Anthopoulos said they wouldn't get anybody they didn't think was better than Grant Holmes. And so Grant Holmes is in the rotation, and the Braves are hoping that they strike it big again, transferring a guy from the reliever role to a starting rotation. And I actually thought Grant Holmes was okay outside of 4 or 5 hitters, but for those 4 or 5 hitters, they made him pay. And that's what that Dodgers lineup can do to you. 4 innings, 4 hits, 4 walks, 4 earned, 3 strikeouts on 89 pitches, 8 hard hits allowed, 95.2 mile per hour average exit velocity against. We've talked a little bit early on about the Braves having some batted ball luck on some hard balls in play. Saw another one from Drake Baldwin tonight, but the Dodgers hit some absolute missiles for outs in this game as well. It could have been much worse for the Atlanta Braves. The erratic command that we saw from Grant Holmes in this one, particularly to start the game, is uncharacteristic of who he has been with the Atlanta Braves, who he was last year, who he was in spring training. I think part of that was nerves. What you also hope is not happening here is that you see the rest of the team pressing. It's an 0-4 start now, an 0-5 start. You're struggling to score offensively. Pitchers are thinking they have to be perfect, kind of like what we saw last year. You hope that's not already happening. But he was, clearly not himself to those first couple of batters. Ended up walking Ohtani, gives up the home run to Teoscar, and it was just, really at that point. It felt like 2024, and it felt like the game was over right there. But then I did think that he settled in a little bit and looked more like the Grant Holmes that we know he can be until Mookie Betts gets that, excuse me, little weak hit to third base, nothing you could do about it. And then the wheels started to fall off again. He did come back out for the fourth inning and have a clean inning, struck out Ohtani a couple of times. So again, there was some good in there for Grant Holmes, and there was really just a pocket to begin the game and a pocket in that third inning where things got away from him. And that's all it really took for the Dodgers to capitalize and put up 4 runs on Grant Holmes and knock him out of the game, drive up his pitch count. When you face the Dodgers, you have to throw strikes. I mean, I know it's simple to say that, and it's easier to say that because, you throw balls in the zone to the Dodgers and they're usually going to make you pay. You have to throw quality strikes, but you can't throw pitches that are well outside of the zone. They are just not going to chase those pitches. And even pitches that are just outside the zone, they're going to foul them off. But you have to be able to trust your stuff in the zone, get ahead of them, and then nibble outside of the zone a little bit. But you're on there, spiking, breaking balls, throwing fastballs well above the zone. They're not going to chase that. Those are just wasted pitches that are going to drive your pitch count up. You have to attack them. You have to trust your stuff, and you have to have confidence to be able to beat this Dodgers lineup, because if you're sitting there trying to nibble, you're sitting there trying to get them to chase, you're going to be out after 4 innings and 90 pitches. That's just what this lineup does. They are not going to chase way out of the zone. They're going to foul off tough pitches, and they're going to wait that you make them, hope that you make a mistake or till you walk them. And that's what makes that Dodgers lineup so powerful. And when they make contact, it's usually pretty loud. Only 8 whiffs and a CSW percentage of 18. I had somebody ask me what CSW percentage is. It's called strike plus whiff percentage. So generally anything 30 or above is what you're looking for. So 18, obviously not great. But again, you're facing a Dodgers lineup that just does not chase and will swing at pitches in the zone. But only 8 whiffs on the night for Grant Holmes. But again, I thought he was okay outside of 2-3 batters to begin the game, and then 2 or 3 batters after that Mookie Betts infield single that he had where things got away from him. And outside of that, I thought it was a really good version of Grant Holmes. It's just the margin of error is so thin when you're playing a team like the Dodgers. On the offensive side of things, the scoreless streak comes to an end at 29 innings. I mean, just incredibly bad. 29 scoreless innings. I don't care who you're facing. And look, I understand the Braves are facing some really good pitching to begin the year on the West Coast where you're having to start the year. I get all of that. But 29 scoreless innings with the talent in this lineup, that just cannot happen. It's inexcusable. It's terrible. It's all the adjectives you want to use. It just cannot happen. Fortunately, Michael Harris did end that streak once again, getting to Tanner Scott left on left. He takes the ball out to left center, reminiscent of what he did back in Miami a few years ago. And he gets the home run and gets the Braves on the board to end that streak. But that was all the offense the Braves had in this one. Look, it was a 6-1 game. It felt like it was 30-1. Well, like you couldn't have told me any different. Like I said, after Teoscar hit that home run, and especially after they added 2 more in the third inning, just felt like the game was over. And the Braves did have some chances in here. The Drake Baldwin hit that I mentioned earlier, right at the wall, almost got out, but of course didn't, because that's the way things are going for the Braves right now. They had another chance later in the game with a couple of runners on and weren't able to get that big hit. Riley had some pretty bad strikeouts in some clutch situations. So, I mean, they had some opportunities where a big blast would have put them back in the game, but they just couldn't get that hit. Glasnow, he did walk 3. Braves got a little bit of help from the umpire, I thought. In this one, there were some really close calls that didn't go Glasnow's way. He does end up striking out 8, though. He's a really good pitcher and a tough guy to face, especially early in the year when you're trying to get your timing down. So not a great matchup for the Atlanta Braves. But again, they had some opportunities because of the walks, and the game was really not technically out of hand. I mean, it was a 4-0 game. Early on, it felt like you still had a chance to get back in there and make some noise, but the offense just couldn't do much of anything all night long against Tyler Glasnow. They weren't able to string some hits together. They weren't able to capitalize on the walks that Glasnow did hand out. They couldn't get to the Dodgers bullpen. They bring in a a rookie reliever that I've never heard of, and you get a leadoff walk from Matt Olson, and then nothing after that. And, that was another opportunity where they could have maybe chipped away at the lead, gotten into that bullpen a little bit, but just wasn't the case. The Braves end up going to Jesse Chavez, who is newly on the roster. We'll see if he gets DFA'd today after giving them some innings. Thought he actually did okay after he gave up the home run to Kike Hernandez. De Los Santos gave up a run, but I thought he threw the ball pretty well. It's just a slider that backed up on him. Then you had a pass ball, wild pitch that advanced the runner, and then a 3-2 pitch that got in on Will Smith, but he was able to pull his hands in enough to put it in center field to drive in a run. But, I thought he threw the ball pretty well. But overall, the offense, you're not going to win many games if you can't score more than one run. It looks like I posted this yesterday. This feels like the vibes of 2024, and I can't have that again. I can't go through another year where you have the same level of offense that we had last season. And look, I'm a believer in the guys in this lineup that they will figure it out. They will get it going and turn things around. But that's exactly the feeling I have right now, is that there's no other way to manufacture runs. They're living off the home run. Those aren't coming. And there's no other way for this team to score. There's not enough athleticism in the lineup without a Ronald Acuña Jr. And it's not a very fun offense to watch right now. And I can't have another season of that. So they got to turn it around. Somebody has to wake up and get the bats going, because I just can't not take another season of futility offensively. So hopefully that happens. Hopefully that changes very quickly, but it's two more really good pitchers that they're going to have to face against the Dodgers and a really good bullpen, but they got to find a way to at least win one of these games in Los Angeles. It really needs to be the game on Tuesday night with Chris Sale on the mound. We'll preview that later, but next I want to get into Spencer Strider's first outing with Gwinnett, Bryce Elders as well, who we're going to see on Wednesday, and everything else happening at the minor league level. We'll do that all here next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shell variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, putting the podcast together on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off kids like I'm constantly doing, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein a punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Well, thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Hanging in there with me through the rough start to the 2025 season for the Atlanta Braves. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. Now, I have been waiting for 3 days now to get to my minor league segment because we've had so much news to get to, but it is our Minors Monday segment happening on Tuesday, where we will weekly talk about everything happening down on the farm. Wasn't a lot happening this past week, as it was just Gwinnett in action. You got AA and High A, I believe, starting this upcoming weekend. So we'll have some more games to talk about. But Gwinnett also winless. The Braves as an organization right now have not won a game, as the Stripers went 0-3 over the weekend. Bryce Elder started the first game for Gwinnett, 2 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 5 earned, 7 strikeouts, 1 home run. 2 of those runs came after he left the game, and Jesse Chavez came in and immediately gave up a 3-run bomb to Tim Elko, big power bat from Ole Miss. So again, a couple of those runs were, inherited runners that came around to score, and on Chavez, who entered the game just like he did on Monday night, entered the game and immediately gave up a home run. His sinker had an average exit velocity against of 102.4. That is awful. He actually had 3 whiffs on 5 swings against his 4-seamer and 5 whiffs on 11 swings against his slider. You just almost wonder, is the 4-seamer a more effective pitch than that sinker? With the movement that he has on his sinker, which is good movement, but just if he could locate that 4-seam up at the top of the zone, play that slider off of it, maybe that makes him more effective. It feels like there is a pitch mix here for Bryce Elder that could work. And maybe they just need to narrow it down a little bit to the pitches that work well off of each other and can be most effective for him. But the 4 walks are not great. You can't do that in Dodger Stadium on Wednesday night. He's going to be gone in 2 2/3 innings again. Got to be able to trust his stuff in the zone. But as we talked about a lot with Bryce Elder over the years, he has to nibble. And going up against a Dodgers lineup that isn't going to chase, it feels like a pretty bad formula for Bryce Elder. If he's going up against a team that's, more susceptible to chasing pitches outside of the zone, then I think he has an opportunity to have some success. It's just, and the Dodgers are a bad matchup for most pitchers, but particularly for Bryce Elder, who just doesn't have the stuff in the zone to be able to get hitters out. I really worry about how Wednesday is going to go for Bryce Elder. And we'll see if he is the solution in the rotation long term, or this is just he was lined up and ready to go in this one, and that's why he's getting the first crack. Also, I don't know who else it would be. Whether you're looking at a Davis Daniel, a Hurston Waldrop, I wouldn't really trust that against the Dodgers either. There aren't a lot of great options at the moment. Jared Schuster actually got the win for Charlotte on Friday night. He struck out 6 batters in 3 innings of relief, former Braves first round pick. As for Spencer Strider, he went 3 innings, gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, 1 earned, 6 strikeouts. The 4-seam averaged 95.9 miles per hour. He topped at 97.4. He averaged 97.2 miles per hour on the fastball in 2023 and 96.3 miles per hour before the injury last year. This could just be part of him getting built up. We saw him hit higher than that in spring training. So maybe and look, averaging 96 miles per hour with the 4-seamer, that's still really, really good. I think he can still be a great pitcher with that. He got 6 strikeouts in 3 innings. But it is a little concerning to see the fastball velo be down, almost 2 miles per hour from where it was, or about 1.5 miles per hour from where it was in 2023. But again, I think he's still just kind of getting built up. He got 7 whiffs on 12 swings against the slider, 16 whiffs overall on 33 swings. That's almost a 50% whiff rate. I don't care what level you're pitching at. That's incredible. Threw 13 changeups, 7 curveballs, and 60 pitches. So he continues to mix in those pitches a little bit more. I would imagine he starts on either Thursday or Friday at Gwinnett. If you're in the Gwinnett area, especially if these pitches on Thursday before the Braves home opener on Friday, you want to get out to Gwinnett and watch Spencer Strider pitch in that one. I would imagine he's going to go around 70, 75 pitches, maybe get at least one more start after that. And depending on everything goes, again, I'm targeting that second homestand. I think it's maybe the Twins and the Cardinals homestand where we could see Spencer Strider make his debut. But overall, a good outing for him. Again, I'm not too concerned about the velocity dip. 96, averaging 96, still very good. I think what concerned me maybe a little bit more is that he topped at 97.4. If he's averaging 96, but he's topping out at 98, then okay. And 97.4, I know the numbers aren't that far off, but that would have made me feel a little bit better if I would have seen some 98s, maybe a 99 in that start as well. But again, he could just be getting ramped back up, taking it slow, not airing it out against a AAA team, and that's certainly understandable. Chasen Shreve got the start on Sunday and threw pretty well. 4 innings, 4 hits, no walks, 2 earned, gave a home run, but 6 strikeouts. He threw 21 splitters and 21 4-seamers, 6 whiffs on 13 swings against that splitter, 5 whiffs on 8 swings against his sweeper. The 4-seam average 89.4 miles per hour. So we're not talking about big stuff here, but obviously some swing and miss pitches with that splitter and sweeper. We'll see if the Braves continue to go this route with Chasen Shreve. They've done this the past several years now, taking guys from the bullpen, seeing what they can be as starters. But if not, maybe Shreve becomes an option for the bullpen. Maybe he takes over the Jose Suarez role at some point if he continues to throw the ball this well and get those swings and misses, but an impressive start from him. Some of the other bullpen options, Buck Farmer, a name that, I asked a lot of you, if not Hector Neris, who would you have gone with to start in the bullpen to begin the year? And many of you mentioned Buck Farmer. I didn't think he had a great spring training. I thought he was actually pretty disappointing in spring training from what I saw, and pretty disappointing his first outing at Gwinnett. He gave up 3 runs on 4 hits, only recorded 1 out on Saturday. Domingo Gonzalez gave up 3 earned on 1 hit and 2 walks, only recorded 2 outs. Wander Suero gave up a run on 2 hits in 1 inning, but he did strike out 2 and got some swings and misses on that changeup. Jordan Weems was one of the best over the weekend, an inning and a third, perfect innings on Sunday with one strikeout. His four-seamer averaged 94.6 miles per hour. He got 2 whiffs on 5 swings against his slider. And Dylan Dodd, man, I just don't know what you do with him at this point. He gave up 5 earned runs on 4 hits and 2 walks and recorded just 2 outs. This was a guy that was in the rotation, looked like it was going to be a big piece for the Braves, and he has just completely fallen apart to the point where I think you just do him a favor and ship him off somewhere else, and maybe a change of scenery does him some good, but he has just completely fallen off the map. And that AAA lineup just looks awful. I mean, I hate to be even more depressing on a day where we're coming off a lot of depressing news, but I look up and down that AAA lineup. There's nobody there that really interests me. And obviously Nacho being injured, he's not in there right now. Alex Verdugo should be joining that team pretty soon. Luke Waddell had 5 hits over the weekend and played shortstop in all 3 games. That's somewhat significant. Eddie Alvarez was 4 for 8 with a home run, 4 walks, and a stolen base. He's a 35-year-old, has mostly played shortstop and second base in his career, but he's played left field and center field for Gwinnett so far. And look, if you're an outfielder right now, you got to be feeling good about your chances to play. He has almost 3,000 at-bats in the minors with a career 280 average and 382 on base, but in just 135 at-bats at the big league level, he's hitting 170 with a 257 on base. But, a veteran hitter, a lot of experience at the minor league level, has been a guy, at least at that level, that's able to get on base, has a little bit of speed, can play all over. I would imagine, if something were to happen to Eli White, that Eddie Alvarez might fill that role as somebody that can play every position for you, a guy that can get on base. Obviously doesn't quite have the speed of an Eli White, but we'll see what happens with Eddie Alvarez if anything becomes of that. Sandy Leon hit a home run and continuing that power surge from spring training. And if you were listening to the broadcast on Monday night, you heard Wiley talk about the fact that Sandy Leon was using one of those torpedo bats in spring training, and he saw the big power from him, and then he hits a home run in this begin his minor league season as well. So maybe there's something there with Sandy Leon and those torpedo bats. I know that's been a hot topic here after the Yankees got off to the hot start. I will say, it was against the Brewers. The Brewers then came home and gave up 10 runs to the Royals. So I don't know if it's all contributed to the torpedo bats. Maybe the Brewers pitching is just that poor. But very interesting, I think, for Sandy Leon to have the power numbers that he had in spring training and then carry that into the regular season at Gwinnett. If that were to continue, maybe we need to look into those torpedo bats a little bit more. Anything to get this offense going. All right, next we'll get into more of the news. We'll talk more about the Profar update. Ronaldo Lopez, Hector Neris, all of that. I know we mentioned it on yesterday's episode. We'll go into a little bit more detail there, give you an update on Ronald Acuña Jr. and set you up for Tuesday night's game. We'll do all that here next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? I just got back from the beach and I am wondering, where did all that money go? But between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on top and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com. Use our code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year. So make sure you take advantage of that. Again, a great budgeting app to help you stay in control of your finances. One more time, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Well, we'll wrap things up recapping the news from yesterday. I know I did a full podcast on this on Monday, talking about the Profar news, and while we were recording, we got the Ronaldo Lopez news as well. But I just wanted to touch on those briefly and some more updates and comments that we got from that. Profar suspended 80 games for violating Major League Baseball's PED violations, whatever you want to call it. Sorry. Snit said he found out about the Profar situation Monday morning. So I've had a lot of you ask me about the Verdugo signing and if that was the Braves, knowing that this had already happened with Profar and that this was going to be coming. I don't think that's the case. I think they saw an opportunity, late in spring training to get a major league outfielder pretty cheap to build out their depth. And I think that was what the Verdugo signing was about. The Fairchild signing or trade is definitely in response to the Profar news. That one I do think was the Fairchild trade was certainly a response to the Profar news, but it sounds like Snicker didn't know till Monday. So I don't think the Braves knew until, Monday or maybe on Sunday, they had some sort of idea. But it sounds like the Braves just found out themselves, even though the testing, as Profar said, was during the off season. So just unfortunate news. Again, you want to hear more on that, go listen to yesterday's podcast. I do think it's going to be Brian De La Cruz that gets the majority of starts against right-handers. But we'll see how the Braves, decide to play that out the rest of the way until Ronald Acuña Jr. comes back, which can't happen soon enough. Ronaldo Lopez goes on the IL. Bryce Elder set to take his place on Wednesday. As I said earlier, we'll see if Elder sticks in that spot in the rotation or he's just a placeholder until they can line up somebody else. I don't know who that somebody else would be. Lopez had soreness after throwing a side section on Sunday. He got an MRI on Monday where you're waiting the results of that to see if it's anything more than inflammation. Hopefully we'll get some good news at some point today about Ronaldo Lopez, that it isn't anything more than inflammation, but still it's the second time now that he's had that in 2 years. It's a guy that went from relieving to starting at big innings increase. So not feeling great about it, especially with what's already transpired so far this season. It's hard not to be pessimistic about the potential outcome for Ronaldo Lopez. Hector Neris was DFA, Jesse Chavez recalled. Again, I talked about this yesterday and kind of ranted on it. It doesn't make a lot of sense that you sign a Hector Neris in hopes that he can regain his former self. You use him in a high leverage situation on opening day with a lead, and then 3 days later you DFA him. I don't get it. And some of the Braves' decision making right now, and again, the Profar stuff was outside of their control, but some of the Braves' decision making is just awful right now, especially when it comes to the pitching side of things. I was okay with the Hector Neris signing. I would have loved to see them be a little bit more patient with him like they are with Craig Kimbrell and give him more time to build back up. I think he had 2 outings in spring training. I know relievers don't need as much time, and the Braves didn't have a lot of great options, but you force Hector Neris onto the opening day rotation. You use him in a high leverage situation on opening day, and now you're DFAing him. And from Brian Snicker's comments on it, it was just a situation where they needed somebody to give them some innings, and that's why they DFA'd Hector Neris, a guy that you signed to kind of be that guy that could hopefully bounce back, a guy that you use in a high leverage spot. Whether you think that was right or wrong, and I've talked about this already, I thought it was the wrong decision, but that's what you signed Hector Neris to be, and now he's gone. It just doesn't make any sense with what the Braves are doing. In order to make room for Stuart Fairchild on the 40-man roster, the Braves put Joe Jimenez on the 60-day IL. Again, don't know the timetable for Jimenez yet if he'll be back this season. Ronald Acuña Jr. has yet to start cutting on those knees, which is a bit unfortunate. I was hoping he'd be a little bit further along than that at this point. Snicker said he'll come to LA at some point in April to be evaluated. That's where he had the surgery, so that's just him going back to the doctors. That's not saying he's going to be in LA for this series. But he will go to LA at some point in April to be evaluated, and hopefully at that point he'll be clear to start cutting and doing normal outfield activities. Again, it's the big thing for Ronald. It's not just about getting him to a point where he can, hit. He also has to be able to play in the field because that DH spot is locked up by Marcell Ozuna. So that's why it's going to take a little bit longer for Acuña to get back. Again, I would have hoped that he was already to a point where he could start doing full activities, but that's not the case. I still think the timeline is early May. We'll have to see when this visit happens in April. Hopefully we get good news on that and we can see him in some rehab games towards the end of April and get him back towards the beginning of May, but we really won't have a clear timeline until he has that evaluation in LA. Sean Murphy will begin a rehab assignment on Tuesday, so good news there. David O'Brien said it was reported that David Robertson is asking for $10 million, which makes sense that nobody has signed him yet. And I alluded to this during the offseason. It's a veteran. He's done all the things in Major League Baseball. It may just be a point where, kind of like Charlie Morton has been over the last couple of years, look, if I don't get a certain number, I'm just going to hang it up and retire. And he certainly has earned that right. That, if he wants to go off and be with family or whatever, and he'd only come back for a certain dollar amount, I understand that. And I understand if that's his thought process, I don't know that I really want that guy, because I want somebody that wants to come back, that wants to continue to compete and win. If you're going to tell me I'm only going to come back if I get this amount of money, then I don't really know that that's the guy that I want anyway. I haven't heard that reported anywhere else. That was the first time I've ever heard anything about David Robertson wanting that much money, but it kind of makes sense why he's still a free agent. All right, moving our attention to Tuesday night's game against the Dodgers, a 10:10 p.m. Eastern start. It's the final late one for a while. Only 2 more games the rest of the season that start after 9 p.m. Eastern, so that is great. Knock those out. And I think those are all done by the All-Star break. The second half of the schedule for the Atlanta Braves is much more favorable. It could be a rough first half of the season, certainly a first month of April, but the second half of the schedule does look better for the Braves. On Tuesday night, though, it's Chris Sale versus Dustin May. Look, like the Swellenbach game against the Padres, that was the game you circled, and that was the game that you had to win. This is the game in the Dodgers series that you circle and say you have to win. You got Chris Sale on the mound. You're going up against Dustin May, who is still really good, has big stuff, just hasn't been able to stay healthy, did not pitch at all in 2024. You got to imagine he can't go long in this one, maybe 70, 75 pitches, although that Dodgers bullpen isn't much easier. But you got your ace on the mound, the NL Cy Young winner, going up against a guy that didn't pitch at all at the big league level last year. This has to be a win. You got to find a way to win this game. As for Chris Sale, watch out for that first inning, a 3.41 ERA in the first inning last year, gave up 2 runs on opening day in the first inning, and that Dodgers lineup from the jump, as you know, they can get out quickly with the top of that order that they have. So that first inning for Chris Sale, can he get out of there unscathed and then settle in? Faced the Dodgers on September 14th of last year, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned, 6 strikeouts. Atlanta won that game 10-1. I would love for that result. I think a lot of us would breathe a little bit easier if they got that kind of result on Tuesday night. Already talked about Dustin May, 191 2/3 innings over the last 5 years combined, but during that time, a 3.10 ERA, a 1.05 whip, a 2.06 average against, so really good. Had a great spring training, 10 innings, 4 hits, did walk 6, hit 3 batters, and had 12 strikeouts. His final outing, he threw 68 pitches, went 5 innings. So again, I would guess he'd probably throw around 75 pitches in this game, so the Braves can be patient against him, knock him out early, scratch a couple runs across, hopefully get into the bottom of the Dodgers bullpen, which again is still really good. It's not like it gets any easier, but hopefully that is the recipe for the Braves offense on Tuesday to get a win. But the Braves need it. Again, this is the game in this series you look at with Bryce Elder looming on Wednesday, already dropping game 1. This is the game in this series. If you're going to get one, it has to be this one, and hopefully that happens. We'll be back on the postcast. I think we'll be ready to do that late on Tuesday night, so look out for that. If not, I'll be back again on Wednesday morning, recapping everything happening in Tuesday's game and any more news that we get on Lopez or otherwise. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Locked On Braves. Make sure that you follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves on X, and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next.